Knowing more about your files. What are files? Files are a computer resource for recording data in a computer storage device, primarily identified by its file name. Just as words can be written to paper, so can data be written to computer files. What different types of files are there? Different type of files. JPEG, PNG, GIF, PDF, SVG, MP4. Every type of file has a file name extension, which can tell your computer how to open the file. JPEG is used for the method of compression for digital images, particularly for those images produced by digital photography. The degree of compression can be adjusted. This simply means that the size of image can be made smaller or larger. When doing so, the storage taken up and the quality will either decrease or increase. PNG, portable network graphics. A PNG is a raster graphic file format that supports lossless data compression. PNG was developed as an improved non-patented replacement for GIF. Unofficially, the initial PNG stood for recursive acronym PNG, not GIF. GIF, graphics interchange format. The GIF file is a type of image that has some motion that was developed by a team at the online service provider CompuServe, led by American computer scientist Steve Willite, and released on June 15, 1987. PDF, portable document format. A PDF is a file format developed by Adobe in 1992 to present documents including text, formatting, and images in a manner independent of application software, hardware, and operating systems. SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. A SVG file is an XML-based vector image format for defining two-dimensional graphics. Having support for interactivity and animation, the SVG specifications is an open standard developed by a World Wide Web consortium since 1999. MP4. MPEG4 Part 14. A MP4 file is a digital multimedia container format mostly used to store video and audio, but it can also be used to store other data such as subtitles and still images. Like most modern container formats, it allows streaming over the internet.
In order to accomplish any kind of real project on a computer, it's important to have a solid understanding of file management. Let's start with the fundamentals. No matter what operating system you're running, whether it's Windows, Mac OS, or Linux, all data on a computer is stored as files. A file is basically a chunk of a certain kind of data. There are many kinds of files, including video files, audio files, image files, text files, and many, many more. In order to keep files organized, we use folders. A folder on your computer is just like a real-life folder. It's a place you can put files to separate them into groups that make sense. Every folder has a folder name, and every file has a file name. The file name serves a couple purposes. The first purpose is to help you, the user, identify what that file is about. So if you wrote an essay about climate change, for example, you might name that file climate essay. The second purpose of the file name is to help the computer recognize what kind of file it is so that it knows what program it should use to open it. There's a special part of the file name that is used for this purpose. It's called the file extension. At the end of every file name, there's a period and then letters or numbers that come after it. Those letters or numbers are the file extension. The file extension is very important because without it, the computer doesn't know what kind of file it is or what to do with it. It's good to keep this in mind when you rename a file, because if you accidentally change or remove the file extension, your computer might not be able to open it anymore, and you'll have to rename it again and put the file extension back in order to fix the problem. Let's look at some common file extensions grouped by category. We've got some that are for audio, some are for video, some that are for images, some that are for a variety of types of documents, and then a few other important ones. This may look like a lot, but in reality, there are actually many, many more. You may be wondering why there are so many file extensions. Why are there a dozen different formats just to store one kind of data? The answer is that even though they may store the same kind of data, they do it differently. For example, among the audio formats, some are uncompressed, meaning that the audio is high quality but takes up a lot of space, and some are compressed, meaning that they sacrifice a little bit of quality in order to take up less space. One of the most common compressed formats that you'll probably recognize is MP3, and one of the most common uncompressed formats is WAV, or WAV. A similar comparison can be drawn between some of the image formats. For example, a PNG, or PNG, is higher quality but takes up more space, while a JPEG sacrifices some quality for smaller size. Another reason for the length of this list is that many programs have their own specific formats and file extensions. Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Photoshop are just a few examples shown here. All of these file extensions may seem a bit overwhelming at first, but there's no need to know all of them. The ones that are important to your specific work will soon become familiar.
How to find file information. Start by going to your Finder app. Once in your Finder, you can right-click on any file or folder to reveal menu options. Click on Get Info to see more about the file. Clicking on More Info will open up a new window with all the information about the file or folder. Things like file size, file kind, file location, and date created. Files and folders can also be locked from this location. You can see and make changes to the file's name and extension, as well as make comments on the file. You can select what program is used to open the file. Lastly, you can see who the file is shared with and what viewing/editing privileges they have. How to find file information windows. Start by going to your File Explorer app. Once in your files, you can right-click on any file or folder to reveal menu options. Click on Priorities to see more about the files. Clicking on Properties will open up a new window with all information about the file or folder, with things like file kind, file size, file location, and date created. Files and folders can also be locked in read-only mode. You can see and make changes to the file names. You can select what program is used to open the file. How to organize your files.
So if you're new to Mac, you may not yet have a good system for organizing your files. Folders are the main tool that you have for organizing things on your Mac. So you're going to want to create folders, as many as you need, to get things organized and know where things are. Now, typically, you store all your documents in your Documents folder on your Mac. This could be either the iCloud Documents folder or your local hard drive Documents folder. They appear to be the same thing. So you want to use that as the main place where you store stuff. But you don't want to just throw a ton of files in your Documents folder. You want to create folders that you can use to organize things. For instance, say if you have a bunch of files that you use for work, you may want to create a new folder that just has work files in it. So you can create a new folder one of many ways. The simplest to remember is go to File and then New Folder. And you can see the keyboard shortcut there is Shift-Command-N. That creates a new folder here, and you can see it's called Untitled Folder by default, and the name is automatically selected. So this is a good time to actually name that folder because you could just start typing. I'll call it Work. Now, I may also have some personal stuff that I want to store on my Mac. So let's go and create a new folder, and we'll call it Personal. And I could put files in here based on whether it's something that has to do with work or personal stuff. So for instance, I could go into my personal folder, I'll go in here and it's empty and I can put some files in there, but maybe I'm going to have a lot of files in my personal folder. So I'll want to actually have folders inside my personal folder as well. I'll create a new one and I'll call this Home Expenses. And I'll store receipts and information about things having to do with my house. I'll create a new folder called Hobbies. And I'll store things in there for hobbies. Now, I may want to have folders inside the hobbies folder as well for different hobbies that I have. You can continue to create as many folders as you like. In different views, like say in the column view, you can see more obviously what I've got here. I've got my main documents folder and I've got personal, I've got work, and I have a few other things like an interesting articles folder, projects folder, that kind of thing. Under personal, I've got hobbies, home expenses. And I could easily move files between these if I want by dragging and dropping. I could open up, say, multiple windows to do that. So I've got, here's my hobbies folder. I'll do Command N or File, New Finder window, and I could go into my work folder, and I could drag and drop items between these. It's pretty easy to do that. You can also, in a column view, easily drag and drop things. So for instance, in my project folder, I have a file here I can drag into work. From work, I can drag into personal. I can wait a second and now it reveals the folders inside there and I can drop into hobbies. So it's easy to move files around, but you're definitely going to want to create a set of folders and subfolders and continue to work on them, modify them, break them out. Like, as I said, maybe you might have a hobbies folder and you put all your files in there having to do with your hobbies, but eventually maybe it gets too big and you can't find things. So maybe you create subfolders, one for each hobby, and then you drag and drop the files in there to create a better organizational structure. A typical Mac user is always creating new folders, always moving files around in different folders, and getting things organized just the way that you want them. It's a personal preference as to how you set it up. So some people may have one folder with a ton of files. Other people may have dozens or even hundreds of folders, each with just a few files in them. You can easily rename folders just by clicking on them, select them and hitting return, and then typing a new name. You can, in icon view, arrange the folders like you want as long as you don't have any special arrangement settings. I have arrange set to none, so I can kind of organize them like that. You could drag folders inside to other folders, and you can also pull them out the same way, usually having two different Finder windows open to drag them, or you could do it in column view. So for instance, in column view, I can go into projects and I could drag project A into the personal folder there. So you have a lot of organizational ability through drag and dropping, renaming. Deleting a folder is as simple as selecting it and then using Command and Delete to move it to the trash, or just dragging it to the trash there. But keep in mind, when you delete a folder, it deletes all of the files and folders inside it. So you want to be careful when doing that.
Right, so briefly, let's talk about creating files and folders, renaming and moving files and folders. Now, just a word of caution, if you're working with a professional application, especially something creative, let's say like Adobe Photoshop or even Adobe Premiere Pro, if you're using an application like that, those files and folders should stay where they are and keep the same names while you're working on the project. If you go back and the files and the folders have moved and the names have changed, Adobe Premiere Pro and other applications will not know, and they won't be able to find those files. So just something to keep in mind as you go about doing this. Now, creating folders is very simple. You simply navigate into the area that you want to have the new folder, you right click, and then you can say new and folder. And you can also create other types of media in File Explorer doing this, but let's just focus on the folder for now. So when you create a new folder, you'll have the immediate opportunity to go ahead and name that anything that you would like. So we'll just leave this new folder here. Now you can move this folder anywhere else in the system. All you have to do that is to right click on it and then say cut. Now, if you want to keep the contents here and then also have them available somewhere else, there are two different ways that you can do that. So for one, you can say copy. And then after you create that copy, you can go into another section and then right click and then say paste. And what that's doing is it's actually creating two instances of that very same folder. And this will also work exactly the same when you are moving a file. Now, the other way that you can do this is, let me go ahead and create a new folder again here. The other way that you can do this is to create a new folder or go to an existing folder or file and then say create shortcut. So when you create a shortcut, I'm just getting a notification here that the shortcut needs to be placed somewhere other than the folder that I'm in. So essentially a shortcut is just a link, sort of like a link on a website. When you click on that shortcut, it's going to take you to that location of that folder or that file. So rather than create a new instance of that, which would take a lot more memory, this would just give you a link or a quick way to get access to that folder or that file. So if you have a particular file that you need to use often or a particular folder, rather than creating a copy and moving the entire thing to your desktop, what you may want to do is create a shortcut instead.
Thanks for listening. If you like to learn this session, if you'd like to learn this lesson with a Cyber Senior mentor, please go to www.cyberseniors.org or call 1-844-217-3057 to register for a one-on-one session. We also host a weekly tech drop-in session from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays.